for the city of Lamar. I'm Mayor Kirk Crespin. You know, over this last year, this pandemic has changed so many different things. And as your new mayor, yeah, I made a few mistakes, but I also learned a lot this year. One of the most valuable things that I learned was working with other entities that we work with, whether it be the commissioners, the public health department, our state partners, or even our federal partners. It's all been about improving communication. And that's been a constant theme that I've tried to work on throughout this past year, not only with our partners, but also with you as our community. Tonight, you're going to hear some discussions with the city council about improving communications within ourselves, because that's important. Not only communications for us as a council, us as city workers, as well as you with our community. This pandemic has allowed us to make a lot of different changes. Over this last year, we've updated a lot of equipment. We've made some improvements and some investments in our media system. We started using social media more often to inform you of what's going on. And we've also began doing these live meetings right now through Zoom, but we plan on continuing this throughout the year, even as we go back to our regular council chambers. Overall, our intent has been to share information with you as a community, to focus not only on the bad things that were happening, but also on the good that was happening in our community. We wanted to let you know all the great things that our staff was working on diligently in the background while this pandemic was happening. Transparency on what the city council is doing, what the city government is doing to you, our community. But we also wanted to use it as a way to teach you on how we do things at the city council and how we run the government. Overall, my hope is that as you learn how the city works, and as you learn how things happen in our community, you'll feel more comfortable to ask questions to your council members or to me as your mayor. Because eventually we would like to see you step up as well. And hopefully as you get more comfortable on how things work in your community, you'll feel comfortable about joining some of the committees or boards, council, or even become the mayor someday. We just want you to help us, help our community, keep continuing to grow and become a better place to live for us all. So with that said, I'm going to move on to our city council meeting. Tonight, we do have one adjustment for our agenda. We do have Mayor Melcher from Holly. I'd like to welcome him as well, but he was going to listen in to our discussion about the 5-star program. So I'm asking the council if it would be okay to move agenda item number 6 up to item number 2, so that we can have that discussion earlier in the meeting and he can move on if he so chooses to. Would that be okay, council?
I'm fine with that.
That's okay with me.
Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to modify the agenda by moving item number 6 to item number 2. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And the motion passes unanimous. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the invocation. Ian, it looks like we have Ian Blacker. Is he here tonight or not quite yet? No, he's not on tonight. Manuel, would you be willing to do the invocation for us tonight?
Yes, I would. Let's pray.
Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the opportunities that we have to come together as a council for the city. Lord, that you've entrusted to us to make decisions concerning issues of finance and other directives, Lord, as allows. But Lord, we just pray a blessing on our time tonight. Give us wisdom and discernment and help us, Lord God, to make decisions that are honoring to you and that are beneficial to our city. We're so thankful, Lord God, that you're a part of our decision-making process and that we can come and pray these prayers. Lord, bless our time tonight. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Raphael, would you lead us in the pledge? Oh, there's our flag with Jerry.
Kirk, can I sign off for a second? Oscar was calling me.
Okay, just mute if you want to.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the
republic
which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
With
justice for all.
liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. It is now 7:06 PM. Roll call, please.
Joe Gonzalez,
Here.
Rafael Rodriguez,
Here.
Jerry Jenkins,
Here,
Kurt Crespin,
Here?
Oscar Riley, Manuel Temez,
Here,
Anne Marie Crampton,
Here,
Steve Kill. Kirk, do you want me to go ahead and mark him as here?
Yeah, he is just on mute.
Kristen McCray,
here,
Lance Clark,
Here.
Okay. Have you all, I'm sure you've all had a chance to review the consent agenda. I didn't see any items that needed separating out for a separate vote. Did any of you see anything that we wanted to separate out?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the audience participation portion of the meeting. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject that's not on the agenda. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each and at the discretion of the council. With the Zoom meetings and the Zoom meeting links, it makes it a little difficult for people to come in and speak during this time. So what we're doing is we're asking anybody that has questions for the council to please place them in the comments or message them to Martha on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page. And from there, they will distribute them to us at the end of the meeting during our miscellaneous section. So aside from that, was there anybody else that would like to speak to the council? Seeing none, we're going to move forward to the city treasurer's report. Kristen?
Hi, the only thing I had tonight was I was just going to let everybody know that I did request the last of the CARES Act money. And they went ahead and approved it, and we are supposed to get payment. I don't know if Linda, if we already did or not, but I did want to let everybody know that we have spent that whole thing. The last thing was spent on the heaters for the pocket park. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we got through that and everything had been approved, and I'm still being audited on a few pieces, but as far as I know that we're all good. So that was the only thing I had to report tonight.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions for Kristen? Council?
Kirk, if you'd allow me, Oscar will be joining us here shortly.
Okay. We'll just continue for the city clerk's report. Is that okay?
Sure.
Linda?
I have nothing tonight.
Nothing at all.
No, sir.
Does anybody have any questions for Linda? Okay. Seeing none, Steve, are you ready to move forward or do you want to hold? Oh, there's Oscar. It looks like he's connecting now.
I'm pretty sure he's coming in. Yeah, he
All
should
right.
be.
So we'll start with any liaison reports. Do we have any liaison reports tonight? Oscar, you're on mute. You're still muted. It looks like you're trying to talk, but it's still muted, Oscar.
I would like to mention that we have a planning and zoning hearing on the 28th there at the Cultural Events Center. So hopefully I'll have something to present to the council at that time.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Oscar.
All righty. Golf course meeting. Had a lot of play in September, best ever. They're gonna have a tournament for, can't even remember what it is now. Two-shot. We'll have the two-shot tournament. Had 92 players last year. fun days, Sundays, a good turnout. Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong meeting. Nothing else to do. Replace 4 cart batteries at $200 a piece. The course is in good shape for the time of the year. There's a leak in the pump station. And to grind the mower reels, there's 16 pair of them. 3 tournaments, Icebreaker, Sodbuster, and Two Shot. That's the golf club tournaments, and the Angel Open, and another one, I can't remember what it is. That's in question. And a Wiley football. They got any new members that want to sign up, they'll get a $100 discount. New members only. Put signs on the course to speed up play, and possible redo the driving range tee box. And they would like Steve to attend some golf meetings. They're the second Tuesday of the month at 5:15. And then we enter the airport. Aviation sent out questionnaires for pilots to fill out for the master plan. CDOT doesn't want to, at the time, had a rule change on the financing the self-service. And I will get onto that later, and that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Oscar.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have liaison reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the city administrator report. Steve?
Yeah, the first thing is just items. I wanted to remind everybody about Valentine's Day so nobody gets in trouble from their spouse or significant other. So if everybody could take care of that, it'd be great. President's Day, I want to remind the residents that the city offices will be closed on Monday, February 15th. Also, my next item is I wanted to have a brief discussion with the city council regarding a vacant building registration ordinance. This is something myself and Kirk have been kicking around for a little bit, and I've done some research on it with CML and other communities that have this. Basically what it is, it's a program that identifies and registers vacant residential and commercial buildings in the community so we can keep track of them, if they're structurally sound, if they're safe, things like that. So it's basically for allow us keep those in code compliance and, hopefully help speed up the rehabilitation of the buildings. I didn't know if I could have a little bit of discussion with the council about that. And if this is something that everybody thinks might be beneficial for our community. And if so, I would love to proceed forward with this.
So we had this discussion a little while back, maybe last year, on the side. And what's happening is there's a lot of, the URA is meant to help improve these buildings. So the city of Lamar had purchased the main cafe building, and we're working on grants so that we can renovate and rebuild and turn that into a restaurant with apartments upstairs. And we're using grant funds to do that, which is a great project. I think it's wonderful for our downtown, and it'll make sure that we have a great running restaurant downtown at all times. So what's happening is some of the communities have noticed that there's buildings that have been just sitting there for years and years, and nobody does anything with them. Nobody's even entered into them for years. Not just in our community, but in communities all across Colorado and our nation. So many of the communities have started doing this vacancy permit, which allows the building inspector to go in and make sure that that building's ready for use. So that if we do have a new business that comes into Lamar and says, I want to move to Lamar, I need that building, I want to use it, or I want to rent it, it's ready to go. We don't have to wait for 6 months for it to be remodeled, refurbished. And then at the same time, it doesn't fall apart to where we have a big hole in downtown Main Street because it was not taken care of. So my intent originally was to look at commercial buildings first and foremost, but I know Steve had threw in there about residential as well. And we can consider both residential and commercial. It's just mainly up to whatever the council wants to do. So I thought I'd just throw that in there to give you some background on the conversation between Steve and I. So please, council, what do you think?
I like the idea. You know, it sounds great. Take care of those buildings that nothing's happening with. But isn't the copper project taking care of those in the residential area?
Well, to be honest with you, Joe, the copper project's slated to maybe do 4 projects. That's it.
This year.
Right. Well, 2 this year, 2 next. It's a total of 6 or 7 projects. Is
Okay.
what,
So it's a slow progression.
it's
But
a
that would
3.
be for the next 5 years, is that correct?
I'm sorry, Joe?
Would that be for the next 5 years, about 2 houses? I mean, because we're allowed so much money per year, right?
Well, we didn't get, the money actually was transferred solely to Lamar Community College. And very shortly here, I'm going to be presenting an intergovernmental agreement for the city to work with the college on the rehabilitation. The problem is that there's not as much funding as you might think when the money was split between all the 3 community colleges. So they have a program in place, but the program only allows for, 6 or 7 remodels. And this ordinance, the reason I threw residential in there is that throughout our community, we have a lot of residential structures that are simply let go. And it would be nice for the owners of these properties, to have to register those with the community. So if they are abandoned and, we just had another problem with a boarded up building. You and I, Joe, we were
Correct.
looking at.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I know originally it was designed to take care of the commercial corridor, but I thought it was important to expand to the residential as well, because we do have a significant issue with that in the community. And that's
Okay.
what the thought was, or the feelings of the council on all of this.
And this, this purpose, the purpose of this isn't so much to create a hassle for the business owners or for the property owners in general. The idea is, tell us what you're going to do with this. Are you going to let it sit for 6 months or a year? If you're going to let it sit for a year, that's fine. Is it up to code? As long as it's up to code and it's ready to go, it's ready and usable, no problem. But if it's falling apart, if it needs a new roof, if it's a dangerous structure that needs to be condemned, we need to address that right away. Or the owner of the property can say, I have a plan 2 years from now. Our plan for demolition or our plan for rehabilitation of the property, whatever it may be, as long as the city can get an idea of what they're doing with it and when they're going to do it, so that we can keep them on task of, let's continue to help our community grow. So it's not so much an issue of trying to make a nuisance for our landlords or our property owners or business owners on Main Street. This is about trying to keep our community growing and moving. So I thought I'd throw that in there.
I know last time when we discussed this a little bit, there was a registration fee and a renewal fee. Is that something that we want to go keep it up? I mean, because we don't want to have that fee so high that they're just paying fees instead of putting money into their renovations.
I was telling Steve that I think the fee, if it was free, that's fine with me. Or if it was $10 or $15 for the permit, that's fine. But if they continue to not follow through with the plan that they've given the city, then in that case, I think there should be a fee or a fine or something that should happen, of course, because the whole idea is to give us a commitment of what you're planning to do with this property. And if you're not following through the commitment, you lose your permit, you lose, you get assigned fees and so on from there. Does that help, Raf?
What do you think the response will be from the business owners or the homeowners? How do you think they'll feel about it? Any thought?
Steve?
Manuel, I guess, as far as I can address the homeowners first. I suppose that the homeowners, if you're living in a neighborhood and you have a dilapidated home that's not secured properly, that's unstable, that's maybe structurally unsound, windows broke. I mean, I think that the homeowners would kind of appreciate us trying to take a more active role in helping keep the neighborhoods up. That's just my thought on the residential side. On the commercial side, one of our goals is to really enhance our Main Street and, our local businesses, and our community thrives on, local business. So if this program in some way can assist those businesses and those residents who do keep up the properties and to make the community nicer, I have to believe that we would have a lot of support for something like this. Just my initial thought. I know that to answer Ralphie's question, some of the ordinances I've looked at and some of the thought process behind it was there was a graduating scale. You would start with a real low fee for the first year. If the property stayed vacant, it would be a higher fee the second year, third year, fourth year, and so on. Because if a property remains vacant for years and years, it definitely starts becoming dilapidated and, not necessarily vandalized, but just the weather takes its toll on it. It's like anything else that's not kept.
And I understand, aesthetically keeping things, looking nice. We want to draw people in. We want to draw businesses in. I don't know, how the community would respond to it. Feel like maybe like you're putting covenants on them, and maybe that you're infringing on some of their rights. Maybe saying, well, now you're going to make me do things that I didn't have to do last year or the year before or 5 years ago, and I've owned this property for who knows how many years, and now you're going to come and start assessing fines if I don't make some changes to it. I'm just saying, I don't think they're going to be very happy about it.
I think that's where I was having the struggle back and forth with between commercial and residential. I mean, the commercial side, Main Street is an entity. And if one building looks terrible, then the whole Main Street will look like it's, a sprawl, or, it's just dilapidated on Main Street. And it detracts people from wanting to open businesses here in downtown Lamar. And I think because of that reason, the property owners on Main Street that are in the commercial areas have more of an obligation or responsibility to keep those available so that we can keep our businesses going. And I see your point about how will the owners feel? I guess it's on both sides. On one hand, you have owners that it's going to improve their property values and it's going to improve the look of Main Street or the look of Olive Street, and it'll help improve our community altogether. So everybody will be for that. However, that one owner, they may not like it, they may not be very happy, but as long as we get an idea of what they're doing, whether it's 1 year or 5 years, if we have an idea of what their plans are, that's all we're mainly looking for is, are you planning to demolish it or sell it?
I get what you're saying. My thought is that if it's privately owned, somebody who owns it and they feel like they have every right to not paint it or, leave the windows with a crack in it, whatever it might be, and the minute we start putting demands on saying, no, it's got to be upgraded, it's got to be brought up to code, it's got to be changed, it's got to come in compliance with the rest of the downtown or even in this community, I think they're going to feel as if that their rights are being taken away for their private property. That's
right.
My thought.
And just to clarify, just to make sure we clarify this, we're not looking at bringing this up to the new 2018 code. Obviously, if it's never vacant, they never have to be inspected because it's always ready to go. If they go to do rewiring or do something like that, of course, then the electrical or the plumbing inspector will look at that. But as far as what the city is looking for, we're not really looking for them to bring it all up to code with brand new windows and a new roof and all of this thing. We're just wanting to make sure that it's a safe, secure building, so it's not an issue for our community or detriment for safety or anything like that. So I want to take that, I want to put that in perspective, because I think if I was hearing it, I would think, oh no, you're going to make me get the new energy efficient windows and energy efficient lighting and all of that. That's not what we're looking for. We're just looking to make sure that it's being utilized or at least kept up. So I know there was one building, the Main Street building alone, that we purchased from to do this renovation. The roof is horrible on that thing. And if we had let it go for another 2 or 3 years, it would have probably caved in by now. So Steve, what do you think on that?
Well,
For example, the J.C. Penney building that's adjacent to the old J.C. Penney building, adjacent to the main, the roof is starting to go on that too. And just so you know, Manuel, there are like 3 main categories here that are going to be looked at: structurally unstable, meaning completely unsafe, not just for the owner, but for anybody in the community. Buildings that are not secured properly, meaning they have windows busted out, doors are busted out. They have to secure those properly.
Like Troy.
Buildings that are dilapidated. You know, so we're not talking about any kind of structure in the community. If you have an old building, but it still has all the windows, it's got a door that locks, the roof's not leaking, it can stay as it is. We're looking for the worst. It's not just the old buildings.
Yeah.
You know, I think definitely, you know, we'd have to look at what the language is on getting something like that put into place, because what if they're not able, what if they can't financially do something in the moment? What if it takes them 5 years? What if it takes them 10 years? What happens to the property? They just get, fined right out of it, and suddenly, well, it's not mine anymore. And where does it go then? And how is it going to seem? It's like, oh, well, the city just annexes it because you couldn't afford to keep it up. How will that look to us?
Well,
If I may, at the same time, I agree with Kurt and Steve there that this can be a safety to some of the community members with dilapidated homes that aren't kept up. It could be a responsibility of the landlord or the owner of such property to keep it safe. I had a few mothers call me this month on a property on Pearl and 13th Street, which is an old meat processing place, where kids were going in and out of the buildings there. And if we don't stay on top of those things like that, I mean, it could be a fire hazard. It could be a something safety, issue with our kids, or even some homeless going inside someplace like that and starting a fire to stay warm. And then God forbid that somebody die in one of these places because we were too easy on asking them to keep their buildings secure.
Good point. Very good point. It's a safety issue. I know we tore down one house over by Lincoln that a couple of years ago, that we walked into the house because the kids were over there playing, and there was a dead pig head in there. There was needles. It was just an awful place, but the kids were in there playing, of course. So it was a safety hazard, and the city ended up doing a demolition on it to help get rid of that. Mainly in talking with Steve, my intent, I don't know for sure with Steve, but I know I had mentioned to Steve that I would like to see, I don't think we need to make a decision on this tonight. I think we wanted to introduce it to the council, get your thoughts. And I'd like to create, kind of a little negotiating committee or a couple of members of the council that can meet with Steve and work on this package and promote, the vacancy permit package. Bring it back to the council, work out some of the details, ask around, talk to your constituents, see what they think, see what their concerns are, and bring it back to the council with your input. And that way we can review it again. But if it's something that you want to move forward with, I think that would be our next best step, is to let's, delegate it to 2 people and 2 council members, and let's move forward with it and have them work with Steve to work it out. What do you think, Steve?
Well, it's in its infancy, and my intent tonight was just to see if you just have some of this kind of general discussion and see if this is something the council is interested in pursuing. And then what I can do, I can work on a draft ordinance. There would be exemptions in the ordinance as well. Everybody would be able to file for an exemption. So it's not just like this all encompassing ordinance, but I just wondered if there was any interest in moving forward. That's all what I really wanted to glean out of the meeting tonight as far as this topic goes.
And I would like to mention, I did come to Steve also this last 2 weeks ago with the landlord who had a renter that the house was in bad shape. And this lady was not, she was kind of disabled, but Steve and Craig met with the landlord. He got the house up to where he needed to have it. And I think if we work with the landlords or the homeowners, they will work with us, because Steve and Craig got them to work with them. And they brought the house up to where it needed to be. So I think it's a good idea, and it's not saying we're going to take their property. We just want them, if they're going to be renting their house and having it, that it needs to be up to code.
Just to make a decision on it. You know, what are you gonna do with it? If you can't afford to do it, can you sell it? Can you remodel?
Right.
Whatever it may be, just a decision.
Well,
So is there any council members that would be interested in working on this with Steve? Manuel, would you be interested? Anne Marie's holding her hand up. Manuel?
I don't know how agreeable I'd be to it, Kirk.
Okay. Well, and
I may not be the one you'd want.
either way. I mean, I give you the ability to get some input on it if you want to talk to the community members and get some input back and forth and put the things that you feel are needed in there or the precautions.
Manuel, it's important to have both sides represented too. I mean,
Right.
I like to hear from the perspective that you bring as well. And I think that that's important. So
it says in the proposal that it's in order to keep in compliance with the code. Now, you're mentioning vacated residential and commercial buildings. Is that what the target is? Is the vacated ones, not the rented ones?
Vacated only.
target is vacated.
What method, or I guess, how is the city paying for these improvements? And then I guess my question would be is how are they paying for it?
No, the city is not paying for the improvements, Lance. The idea is to have the owners register vacant structures and submit the plan to the city on what they're going to do with them, not just simply let them sit and deteriorate to the point where all the windows become busted out, the kids start playing in them, they become a hangout. You know what I'm saying? It just makes them, do something with the vacant structures instead of just let them deteriorate and get to the point where they start to pose an economic hardship on the surrounding property. For example, I mean, these buildings right here, they cause the community an economic burden, meaning that if you have all these vacant structures that are becoming dilapidated, what happens is there's an unnecessary hardship on the adjacent property owners. It decreases the property values of the surrounding owners and the saleability, quite frankly, of the buildings adjacent to it. So that's kind of what the thought process was initially.
Okay, so the incentive to repair would be being on the list the city is aware of.
Well, and then if you have a vacant structure and it's, let's say if it's a safety hazard, then I would expect that their plan would include a way to bring that back to a structural stable state and secure the building at least.
Well, and it's about giving a plan, Lance. It's, are you going to demolish it? Are you going to sell it? Is it going to sit for 3 months and you're going to remodel it? It's not really so much as telling them what to do with it. It's about asking them, what are you planning to do with it now that it's vacant over 90 days? That was the intent, was just to get a permit to say, this is what we're doing with it. And that's why it's vacant.
And Lance, quite honestly, this happens a lot. There's a lot of calls that come in for people that, from parents that are saying, hey, this house has been vacant now for 5 years. The windows are busted out. This is, the kids are going to get hurt in there. And then we end up doing something with it anyway. So we're always there going to have to deal with these no matter what.
Initially, like I said, my main goal was to focus on commercial properties first. Residential was a secondary thing, but if we're talking about economic development and growing our community, I think having these buildings ready to be rented and ready to be utilized by businesses that come looking in Lamar, I think that's very important. So I guess for me, I felt like the commercial properties were the first and foremost, and then we can move to residential. But if we could do one, the other, or both, that would be great. I just think that sometimes we got to just make decisions on what we're going to do with these properties, whether it be sell it, tear it down, fix it up, remodel it, whatever it may be. So it'd be nice for the city to know what their plans are.
This also include the trailers that are really in bad shape.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be my intent as well, Jerry. That's why I know Kirk didn't originally was after commercial, but I thought it was important to incorporate residential and commercial if we're going to do something. And again, I'm not even sure if we're going to do it. I just kind of wanted to ask the council if this is something you'd like to pursue. So
I would
So-
like to put something on paper and then go from there to see what kind of regulations are put forth and, you know, what's required and go from there and see what we can do to make our city a lot safer place. Not also just for our kids, but for everybody else that live in the surrounding communities where there is an unsafe home.
Anne Marie?
Well, I'd like to focus on the vacant commercial buildings first. I think I love your point about that these are buildings that could be redeveloped for economic development. And if we don't know if their foundations are failing or their roofs are gone or those kind of things, how can we ask somebody coming into our town to buy that and renovate that right off the bat? I think there's absolutely interest and opportunity to address residential and then the occupied residential as well. But I'd like to see if we can focus on one and then move to the others for simplicity.
So we had Anne Marie that was interested in working on this as a committee member. I mentioned it to Manuel, Joe or Manuel or Raf, any of you, Jerry, Oscar?
I'm fine. You can count me in if needed. I don't mind.
Okay, so why don't we have Anne Marie and Joe work on it with Steve, and we'll delegate that out so you guys can bring it back to the council and make the decision on whether to do it commercial then residential or commercial and residential. And I would say if you can talk to other communities that are actually utilizing this kind of a vacancy permit program, it would probably be useful to get some feedback from them as well.
you know what, Kirk, I'll go ahead and get a draft ordinance then over to Joe and Anne Marie.
Great,
So,
okay.
Thank you.
all right, next item on my report is we have a request from the First Presbyterian Church. Lance, and this might be something that I'm gonna want you to weigh in on. Basically what the church is asking to do, and there's a drawing in the city administrator report that you all can look at. We're dealing with Laurel and I believe 6th Street. The church is on the corner. They would like us to vacate 20 foot of right of way on Laurel Street. And that would go to the church. And in return, they will grant us right of way on 6th Street. And I think the drawing shows you what they're asking to do. Now, typically, I would do a vacation of right of way for Laurel, but on 6th Street there would simply be a deed of dedication. And this is a request from the church, and I had indicated to the church I would bring this to the council to see if you were interested in looking at this. I certainly really I don't have any problem with it. Even if we vacated the 20 feet on Laurel Street, that would still leave us with a 60-foot right of way, which is more than enough room on a residential street. Right now, the church owns to the middle of 6th Street, which means there's and with the dedication, there would be an 80-foot right of way on 6th Street. So typically you don't want a road privately held, or for that matter, a sidewalk. So this does make a whole lot of sense. And I was wondering what the feelings of the council were, so I could let the church know.
I'm good with it.
I don't see where there's any problems with it.
I'd say move forward and bring it back to the council for final approval.
I'm definitely ready to do it.
Here a while back, we granted them 2 lots in the rear of the church for them to sell for residential. And I think this is just part of that deal to cover their bases. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, everybody else, if you're good with it, I would like to work with Lance. I have a plan on how to do this, but I just want to make sure that Lance is okay with it. So Lance, if you could just make a quick note, we'll work on this together then.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay, the next item is, I have been asked several times, and I know this has come up in the past, but a golf cart ordinance that would allow for the driving of golf carts on just certain residential, basically primarily residential streets with a low speed limit, not any arterials or collector streets or anything like that. I didn't know if there was any interest amongst the council in looking at something like this. I guess I'm asking for a little bit of direction.
I like the idea. I'd like to see something go forth with it.
I think it could get out of hand.
Yeah, I think I know kind of is one of the streets, maybe Memorial Drive out by the golf course, or
That would not qualify. Anne Marie.
okay. Because I know at one point residents around the golf course wanted to have the ability to drive their golf carts to the golf course, and people tend to fly on Memorial Drive, and I think that's a accident waiting to happen. Were there particular streets that you can tell us which streets, or is it just kind of the concept and not any particular street at this point?
Well, I would work with Kyle. If this is something that I can pursue, then I would work with Kyle on this.
What do you think about it?
Are you asking me?
That's in Kyle.
Oh, Kyle, sorry.
So I think this was brought up 2 years ago, probably, and I did quite a bit of research on it to look at other ordinances and how other communities are doing it. I'm like Steve. I think that if we did this the correct way, it'd be fine. We would have to have obviously some kind of a permitting process. The golf carts would have to be up to traffic code. They'd have to have headlights, stoplights, turn signals, seat belts, all that stuff. So I think that this is very much the beginning phase, that we'd have to do a lot of research if this is something council wants us to look into, because it's not going to be a cheap process for somebody to turn a golf cart into a road-ready vehicle.
There are a lot of communities in the state that do this, and it's just something that, quite honestly, is becoming more and more common, to be honest with you. But like the chief said, it's not cheap to bring these golf carts up to a standard where you can actually operate them. So I do have a lot of firsthand experience with this, and there's not as many as you might think that will actually do this. So it's
legally. There's not as many who can probably do it legally. Probably
right.
Once they see people doing it, how many are going to just start grabbing golf carts and start going around?
But I think if we clearly identify them, whether they have to have a flag, the registration sticker, licensed driver, like Kyle said, the headlights, all that good stuff, I think it won't be such a big a problem. Keep them off certain streets.
I agree with you. I like the idea, and if they're somewhat registered like we are with our vehicles and so forth, and all the proper safety gear, and if they're not obeying the laws of regular traffic driving, then yeah, there comes forth a ticket and so forth like that.
If there's no objection, we can go ahead and start looking into this. And then, like you said, it's quite a process. This doesn't happen overnight, and we can, in the next several months, we can actually get the council a draft ordinance to look at, and then you can see what we have in mind if there's no objection.
I like it.
I wouldn't mind looking at it if you can give a few cities that actually have done this type of thing so we can compare. I'm not jumping up and down with excitement for it, but because we have a lot of different things that we need to be working on. But if this is a project that the council wants to work on and bring back, I mean, it doesn't hurt to look at it for sure as an amenity for the community.
It certainly wouldn't be our first priority, Kurt, just so you know.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
I would put a very stiff fine if they aren't.
Yeah.
Right. There are actually pretty big fines sometimes for non-compliance, so. And remember, each one would have to be registered and it would have to have a sticker issued by the police department too. That's what my experience has been. So the police officer knows that if it has a registration sticker on it, it's already been inspected by the police department and they know insurance is on it. And so, yeah, I get it, Oscar. Absolutely.
Would there be an age limit on the drivers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You have to have
be-
a valid license.
16 licensed driver.
Yeah, you have to have a valid driver's license.
Okay.
My only fear would be that, you get the golf carts in and then people are going to want to have off-road vehicles or ATVs or, the razors or something else. And I'm just concerned that it may open up more conversations for other products. And as long as we were very specific, maybe we can limit some of that conversation up front. So.
Yeah, there's a certain CC, Kirk, that you can't go over and all. There's a lot of different regulations to stop things like that, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you'll bring that back?
Yeah, that will be in the future. That's just a future thing. I just wanted to bring it up. The next item is our airport and our FBO contract.
Before you go on, if there's any council member that wants to work with Steve on this for the golf court thing, just give him a call and you can work with him directly. I just thought I'd throw that out there and make sure you understood you can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, count me in, Steve.
Was that Ralphie?
Yep.
All righty, I got you written down. Thank you, sir.
So Steve kind of started mentioning already about the FBO at the airport. This is something that we have been working on with the FBO for about, 6 months, Steve?
At least, yes.
The FBO, especially with, the FBO is the fixed based operator. The fixed based operator, basically we give them the airport to man and run. There are certain things that they need to fulfill as far as commitments and products that they offer. But in return, we give them the facility to use as a business as the fixed based operator. So there's a few different perks with it, but then there's some work to go along with it. It's just a mutual partnership. And we've had this with Lamar Flight Service for many, many years. And now they're considering, especially with the COVID and the effects of COVID, it's been really hard out there at the airport. It's really affected their business, just like it has with most businesses in Lamar. And they were looking at different options. One of the options was they had asked the city to do a subsidy as well as, basically pay them to man the airport as the FBO. They had threw out a dollar amount and we weren't agreeable to that. So we've been going back and forth trying to negotiate out a way to make it work to where we can continue to have the same fixed based operator and still provide all the services out there at the airport. Because there's no doubt Lamar Flight Service has done a wonderful job for Lamar. They've brought out the yaks, the airplanes. They've done a lot of different, they have the Air Force that comes out and do their jumping and training. There's just a lot that they add on top of it. And compared to many other airports that you fly into that there's nobody there, there's nobody manning the place. In comparison, Lamar really is a jewel because when a pilot lands, they can come in, they could have somebody to talk to, they get fueled up, they really get good service and pilots enjoy that. However, now we're at a situation where we need to make a decision. And my comment back to them was, if it was small changes, we could consider just continuing with the FBO contract and modifying it to do what they need to. But with a significant jump in dollars and with us having to make an investment of $5,000 a month or $2,000 a month or even $1,000 a month, we would have to go back out to bid and rebid the whole FBO, which after many, many discussions, that was the direction that the fixed based operator decided they wanted to go. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, I'd just like to, if the council will remember, the last time we discussed this, we discussed adding 2 items to the agreement. Number one, the council approved doing the self-service fuel. And we agreed that over in 2021, we would assist with the grass mowing, which would allow Eric to stay in the shop and fix airplanes to help them, assist them get through COVID. In a very recent meeting last Friday, they indicated that that was not going to be enough. And we told the FBO that, hey, this is all the city council authorized. We can't do any more. They asked for the city to pay them instead of the FBO renting the facility from the city. They turned it around. They want the city to pay them $5,000 a month now to operate the airport. And we simply said, well, that's not what the city council said to do. And so that would be a substantial change to the agreement. And honestly, that's why this is on the agenda under my report. So we can let everybody know where we're at right now at this point. And I know Oscar attends the airport board meetings as well as I do. And that's where we're at with the FBO. I'm not exactly sure what else to say. And I was kind of looking and for some input from the council. Oscar, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'll do that under miscellaneous. I haven't been to the FBO meetings, but Eric and his wife have been doing a great job out there. But $5,000 a month is just not realistic. I mean, yeah, it's just not realistic as far as I'm concerned. I'd learn how to do it. I'd learn how to take care of it for that.
And that was part of the discussion because, last year, many of you may remember, we converted our Lamar Municipal Airport to the Southeast Regional Airport. The idea behind that was to grow the airport and to expand it so that we can utilize it as a regional hub rather than just a municipal airport. So our hopes were to grow it and make it more, not only more profitable, but more usable and more user-friendly. They've done a great job out there at the FBO as an FBO, but
yep.
When we get to a certain dollar amount, you start to weigh the fact. I mean, I would love to have as many items that the city handles taken care of by the public sector. If we could sub out the ambulance department to the public sector, we would do that. But it's more cost efficient for us to run the ambulance, and that's why we do it. Because for the citizens, it's more cost effective for us to run it. And when it comes to the FBO, it's kind of the same similar situation where, like Oscar said, if we start paying too much to it, how much is too much before we end up running it ourselves anyhow? So will we do as good of a job? Will we be able to manage it the way they do? We don't have the experience. We don't have the manpower. So that is a risk that we would take. So we really need to decide what direction as a council we want to go. Do we want to rebid this? Do we want to go out and search for other FBOs? Do we want to continue to negotiate with the current FBO? Do we want to, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking for, is some kind of idea. And ideally, it would be great for the council to give a head nod for 2 council members to work out this negotiation, either with the new FBO or the city or the old FBO.
I was just going to add too, Kirk, and I know most of you know that, but we do pay about $50,000 just in expenses every year, just for the utilities and maintaining it already as well. So, I think that needs to be taken into consideration too.
Thanks, Kristen.
So while they're negotiating, what are they doing? Are they still operating?
Yes.
Manuel, they're at a point right now where they feel that they are losing money dramatically. And believe me, this is not, I don't want to misunderstand anybody to misunderstand. There's not an adversarial relationship here with the FBO. It's simply fuel sales are down. Not that many people are still flying. So it's not an adversarial relationship. It's simply a business item. They said that they could continue for 45 days. And then after the 45-day period, something's probably going to have to give. So that's why I wanted to bring this up to the council as soon as I found this out, which was Friday afternoon at like 5 o'clock. So this is very new information. This is just came out. So like Kirk said, we're at a point right now where we're probably not going to have an FBO in a couple months.
What's the progress of the self-serve pumps?
Well, I think Oscar is going to address that under miscellaneous, but the progress is that we were going to use CARES Act money. When we had asked the city council to approve the self-serve pumps, you all approved the use of CARES Act money. Well, CARES Act money was denied. We were denied the use of that money. So we are trying to use our entitlement funds and work through the FAA and the CDOT Aviation Division. Well, we're not getting a whole lot of cooperation, to be honest with you. For some reason, there's an adversity to using that kind of money for self-service pumps. So the project is stifled. We just actually completed a questionnaire from CDOT Aviation late last week. We received an email that said, hey, there are, ever since you guys asked to use some of your money for self-service pumps, we've had a lot of other requests. Would you please fill out this questionnaire? How much low lead do you use? What's your jet fuel usage? How many planes do you have a day? So it's almost like they're looking for excuses not to approve it, Manuel, to be honest with you. But
Kristen, did we look at any other financing options? Do you recall?
No, not at that time. I just went to the DOLA on the CARES Act funds and they did deny it. But my suggestion was to try the entitlement next because those can be traded out with other communities. We've done that in the past and just find out if that was an option. But I'm glad to help in any way I can and try to see if there was something out there. If you guys want to, me to go in that direction.
Well, I think we could spend the whole night on this topic because it is such a huge topic. And I know we're kind of limited on time for the evening and we have a lot still on the agenda. So as I mentioned earlier, it would be nice to have the council, grant a couple of people. I know I've been working with Steve on it. I mean, if you're okay with me continuing to work with Steve and maybe somebody else can join us for the negotiations.
I will.
Oscar? If the council's good with that, we can continue to talk to the FBO and work with Steve and try to figure out a solution and then bring the solution back to the council for a final determination. Are you guys good with that?
Yes.
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 And for those of you watching, the reason why I'm asking for only 2 council members is anytime you have more than 3 council members in a meeting, that invalidates the sunshine law, which means that it's a legal meeting that needs to be advertised and broadcasted and needs to be a public meeting. So that's why we limit these negotiation groups to 2 at a time for council members. So I just thought I'd throw that out as a educational portion. Are you good with that, Steve?
I am perfect with that. I know that we're going to need to move sooner than later on this, so I appreciate the direction. Last item on my list, North Gateway Park. I'm not going to go into, we've already spent a lot of time on my report, so plans are still progressing. Shelters are built. I sent everybody a picture. We're still moving ahead as we originally planned to do. That was all I wanted to say. So.
Okay. All right, it looks like we're missing an item in the agenda. The discussion for agenda item number 2, in my agenda anyhow. So the next item on the agenda is supposed to be the discussion regarding council communication, strategic planning work session and projects. So, as a council, each member of the council is kind of like the ultimate insider. We are the governing body for the city. We're the highest level of governing body for the city. Each one of you is one of 7 votes for decisions that are being made in the city. Each one of you have assignments to be liaisons on different boards. And each one of you help to create policy through the ordinances and resolutions that the city staff brings to us. So it's a pretty big job as a council member to be part of this. And, you know, a lot of this, that's one role as a council member. The second role is as a council member, we're also the direct manager of only 3, well, actually 5 people, which is the city administrator, city treasurer, city clerk, the city attorney, and the judge. Now, any one of those employees that work directly and answer directly to the council, any one of the council members can call and ask for assistance. They can call to address community concerns. They can call to engage, to, you know, have that member engage their departments to see if they can help, if there's any problems or issues. They can also contact them to suggest changes or ideas or discuss any other items. The only thing that we limit is on the city judge. We limit communications with the city judge because that's municipal matter and it's judicial. So we really don't have any communication between the council and the municipal judge other than overall direction and the renewal of the contract. When it comes to the city attorney, the partnership with Lance or Steer and Shin is a little different than what we had last year and the year before with Garth Nischberg. In the past, Garth Nischberg was on the payroll as a contract employee, but he had an unlimited amount of hours. So, but with the new contract, we are assigned or paid by the hour. So it's a little bit different. And so because of that, we asked the council members, if you have any questions that need to be addressed by the city attorney, please flow that through Steve so that Steve can manage the budget with Kristen, so that Steve can keep track of the items that Lance are working on, and that he can kind of review the necessity of going directly to the city attorney. And that just helps us manage the funds a little bit better. So those are the reasons or the things that we do as the council as far as the main jobs. But when it comes to the council as a whole, one of the other things that we've done in the past is we used to set up what was called a strategic planning meeting. And we would take a Saturday morning, we'd get together, the council would discuss strategies for the next, 1, 3, 5, and 10 years. And we discuss all the different topics and issues that are coming up in the city and what we need to address. And we'd start working with department heads and Steve and Kristen and Linda to let them know, these are our important topics and these are the ones we really want to focus on. Or these are the ones that we don't really care about, we want to put off to the side. It really gives, especially Steve, some direction on what's important and what's not important for the council. So one of the things I wanted to do before we move on is I wanted to make sure that I want to ask the council, would you be okay with doing a Saturday morning or a Saturday strategic planning session sometime in mid-February or early March is what I would like to do.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, are you all good with that?
I'm okay with that. It depends what time.
We would start like at 8 in the morning until noon. We'd have a lunch and then leave after the lunch.
Well, I might be late to it, but yeah, maybe 9 o'clock would be better for me, but.
Okay, we could do that 9 to 1 or something like that. Is there any weekend in particular that you would prefer in February or March?
Kirk, what might be better is if every one of the council members could check their schedules and maybe email in a couple Saturdays that work.
Okay.
And then I match them all up and see what tends to work for everybody.
Okay.
If
you
that would
guys
be
can do that, could you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, why don't we do that this week? I'll follow up if I don't hear from you to make sure that we can narrow that down to a certain date. But I do think that strategic planning is very important for us so we can get a grip on where we want to go for the future. And it also gives the council an opportunity to talk about what's important for each one of us as well. So the next part was the communication portion of it. As the mayor, I guess for me, I've always felt that it's really my duty to find out what's going on and remain informed on what's happening within the city. I haven't had the need to call Linda very much. I haven't had the need to call Kristen very much. But Steve, since he has oversees the majority of the city, I got to admit, I probably pester him once a day at least, if not 3 or 4 times a day. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because they don't call me. I call Steve, or I call Linda, or I call Kristen when I need something. And I really want to encourage our council members and let you know that you have that ability. This is, if you want to know what's going on, if you see a topic on the agenda like tonight, whether it be the variance or for the vacancy permit, or whether it be something about the 5-star or whatever item there is, if you want to get involved, just speak up and we can, make sure that you get involved and stay in the loop on some of these things, because with 7 of us, it's very difficult to get all the information decimated, because some council members may not be interested in one thing or the other. But we want to make sure that you're up to date on what you are interested in. And I know through that pandemic last year, it made it very difficult for me, because throughout the year, I was going from crisis to crisis, making decisions to decisions. And Steve and I talked a lot, and I talked to Kristen and Linda a few times, and we were trying to make decisions quickly because of the situation. But now that things are leveling out, now that things are slowing down, I really want to get back to the core of communicating and having the council members step in and get involved and, contact these members, especially with Steve, and really get to know what's going on, especially in your own wards, because, that's kind of one of those important pieces. So with that said, I'll just kind of leave it open. If any of you want to talk, I'll leave the floor open.
I'll share a few things. When we have these meetings, when we're all here together, I think these are some of the most important times for us to be able to have open communication. And for me, anytime I may not even be aware that there are questions to be asked, I would appreciate, and I'm assuming they all have the freedom, whether it's from Lance or Kristen or Linda, that they would go, hey, have you thought about this? Or don't forget issue or this part of it, because without that, then I may not be able to make the best informed decision, because sometimes I don't always have all of the information maybe to make a decision. And so, and also, we're getting these on Friday. So then we got like one day, Monday, maybe to try to, dig a little further. But I think for me, the purpose of having this council meeting is when we hash it out. This is when we start asking each other, well, how do you feel? Well, what do you think? And so for me, getting input from everybody who's here, whether it's Kyle, whether it's Lance, whoever it may be, that's important to me. And I think this is the place where it should happen, and it should happen without any recourse. I mean, we should all have the liberty and the freedom to be able to say, hey, we need to look at this, or don't forget that, or have you thought of it this way?
I agree. I know Anne Marie and I had a conversation last week, because last year and the year before, we had once a month, we had a work session, and it was just a Monday, the first Monday of the month. We scheduled a work session. Even if we didn't have a topic, we just scheduled a work session for the council to meet, get together, and go over these things where we had an open forum where we can discuss it. It wasn't in the meeting itself, but it was in an open forum so the council can talk amongst themselves. Kind of like tonight, it makes it a challenge, because let's say, for instance, earlier when we were talking about the variance or the vacancy permit, and I stopped and said, I know we could talk about this thing all night long, but we got a whole lot more business that we need to take care of. It's a challenge for us, because as a council, because the city employees, Kristen, Linda, Steve, they work together 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So they have 160 working hours to work together to solve problems. They ask questions and try to hammer things out. But when it comes to the council, we have 2 hours a month. We have the first or the second Monday and the fourth Monday. So our time is very limited on what we can do. So when it comes to the council meeting itself, we really need to kind of streamline things so we're not having a 5-hour discussion.
I get the point that we don't want to, overdo things. I understand that, but this is our job. I mean, this is why we're here in these positions. to do this very thing, to get, the best information so we can make the best decisions for our city. And if there's something else that has to be added or brought up, I think it needs to be added or brought up, even if it means we go a little bit longer. For the sake of keeping it short or moving on, it's more important to me to know that we're doing things right, we're doing things well, and we're all very well informed from wherever that information comes from.
I agree. And that's why I was stressing, and that's why I was asking you, would you like to join that committee of two? Because if you want to know what's going on with that, if you want to be involved in it, that's how we would do it, as far as the day-to-day and really hashing out and hammering out the hard questions, because by the time it comes to the council, a lot of times it's streamlined. So I'm just putting it out there. And maybe if we add this once a month work session together, that would give us the time to have more free conversations about these topics. So it's not limited in a council meeting. But Anne Marie?
So the only thing I wanted to add is I would love to see council agendas and materials be a little packeted a little earlier, maybe 24 hours earlier, where the attorney, clerk, and treasurer might be able to add their content to the packet. A lot of what we think about is brought on by those comments, and it would help if everybody had that same basic information. I would love to see that if that's at all possible. And I don't know if 24 hours would do it for Linda or Kristen or Lance. Some weeks I'm sure it wouldn't be enough time, but hopefully it would give them a little more opportunity to maybe do a little research and know what they need to get us to help us with our decisions.
Okay. Anybody else have any suggestions?
You're not going to hold these work sessions by Zoom, are you?
We might have to for a month or so, but eventually we don't want to.
Okay.
Can I offer a suggestion, Kirk, if I might?
Yes.
A lot of times what really seems to work well is maybe one of the Mondays a month, do a 6 o'clock work session. Let's just talk about everything for an hour ahead of time before we actually get to the meeting.
Okay.
So I think, not to just belittle this to death, but we've done that before, and in some cases, most cases, it's fine. But if there's a particularly complicated issue or multiple issues, it can be pretty challenging to get everything done in that hour beforehand, and then you're cramming it in and then starting the meeting without actually having a full discussion on it. So it does tend to work out better if it's a separate work session on a different Monday.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, because that's what we used to do, was do it on the first Monday, just as a work session only with unlimited time. And then on the second weekend, a week later, we'd have the actual council meeting where we can actually hammer it through. And I guess that would leave it open for the third Monday if we needed to. We could have another one or request another one, but maybe just fixing the first Monday, no matter what, might at least help.
I just, Lance, Kristen, Linda, Kyle, any of the other members, if there's anything you think that I'm missing or it's not being brought up, please bring it up, because I want to be able to make the best informed decisions that I can. And this is the time that I have to make those decisions. And so to me, it's important that you bring up those issues. If there is any issues, if it wasn't brought up, please bring it up. That's what these times are for.
Okay. Any other ways to help? Guys, suggestions, Raf?
So work session next Monday, Cultural Event Center.
The first Monday of the month, you want to do it that way? Or do you want to do it next? That would be next Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
But I think if the council chamber is not ready, I think we could probably set up the cultural ed center, right?
We just don't have any audio, Raf. I mean, it's just not really that conducive to online, and we don't have the audio capability as we do at the council meeting. That's why I was shooting for the second Monday in February to restart meetings.
we can work on it.
Yeah, we're going to have a strategic plan. So maybe our Saturday morning planning session, that will serve pretty much as a work session as well. And we're going to do that in February anyway. So I would think that maybe we should shoot for that in February.
Okay.
Because we'll have plenty of time on a Saturday morning.
Okay, well, let's start with the Monday on the 1st. We'll plan to do that meeting. Steve, why don't we try to do the in-person at the culture event? And if not, then we'll do a Zoom. But let's try it first and see if we can.
So that would be,
Even if we just had one mic for the Zoom, one person on Zoom broadcasting the work session, I guess. Would that work, or would it need to be?
well, I'm not exactly certain. I'll take a look at it.
Okay. We could hammer that out this week. Are you guys good with that?
Yes.
Jerry?
Might as well.
I guess I'm okay.
All right. Well, shall we
Senator-
move on, or do you have more?
And a reminder,
Okay. All right, any other suggestions on communication updates? How we can improve communication here? Well, I think that meeting will at least help a lot, so that should be a big assistance, so. All right, well, we'll move on to the next agenda item, if everybody is okay with that. Are we good? Okay. All right, next agenda item we had was, we had made the change on the agenda to discuss the 5-star program. So before we get into that, I want to just do a quick overview of what this 5-star is and what we're doing. So the state of Colorado had brought out during the pandemic of the last strain, everybody went into the red level in the state. And at that time, the state brought out this 5-star program that was brought on to resemble Weld County's program. This 5-star program is a little bit more stringent as far as how it's managed and how it's ran. It does have specific requirements to be involved in it. So for instance, you have to have your, certain masks being worn and signage, and you just have to verify all of those items. So it is a little bit more stringent. The difference is the city of Lamar, we created our Safe Business Pledge a couple of months ago during December, actually a month ago. We did our Safe Business Pledge. And what we talked about what I had talked about with county commissioners is, can the county merge the Safe Business Pledge program of the city of Lamar with a 5-star program and modify it to where it's something that we could actually do for our community rather than making it difficult as difficult as it is for the people in Denver. Now, there were some issues that the 5-star program had, such as originally they were having a third-party company come in. It was costing like $1,200 to do an inspection for some of these businesses in Denver, which for Denver, that's nothing, but for Lamar, Colorado, that's outrageous. So we obviously took that out. There were they wanted to hire a third-party person to work the program and manage it. And have that person go through and do the inspections and checklists. We didn't want to hire a third party. We don't want to make it very expensive. We want to keep it cost affordable. So we were looking at having one of our current employees with the city do that job for 4 hours, 5 hours a week. So putting all these different components together, we created a modified 5-star program. Now, what the 5-star program basically means for a business is, if a business, if this is approved, the 5-star program is approved, that business will sign up and agree to follow those certain conditions, and they'll follow through this process, and they know and they understand that it's voluntary, for one, for two, that they do have those requirements, and for three, that they can walk away from the program, they can be kicked off the program, they can be turned away from the program at any time if they're not following through with it. Now, there's no fees, no fines, no legal ramifications, nothing like that. This is voluntary. If a restaurant wants to voluntarily participate and says, yes, I'm willing to do all of those things, I want to participate in this program, we'll sign them up, we'll do the inspection, we'll get them started. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the inspector will go in and just double check on them, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if they are, great, we keep moving forward. If we get a complaint that they're not doing it, or if we find out that they're not doing it, we just notify them and let them know, hey, you guys wanted to do this program. If you're still interested, we need to correct these things. However, if they say, no, I don't want to do this anymore, okay, they walk away and they go back to whatever the current state level is. Now, that's the key with this program. For a business that voluntarily decides to participate, they actually get to move to the next level. So if they're in the red, if we're in the red, they get to be in orange. So in the red, those restaurants were closed. If they participate in this program, they can be in the orange and they can stay open with limited capacity. We're all in the orange right now. If they're participating in the program, they go from being orange to go to yellow. And if we go to yellow, they get to go to the blue. So it just keeps them one level ahead of the rest of the community that is not participating in this program. So worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. They go back to doing what the state's ordering the county to do, and they're just back to where they were to begin with. But what this does is, our intent was to give them a tool, give them an opportunity, give them a choice. They can choose to do it. They can choose to walk away. If they don't participate, if they don't want to do it, they can walk away. They can say, I'm not interested, and leave it at that. They do not have to do a thing with this program at all. But if they choose to, they can. And if they choose to, they'll have the opportunity to open faster and with more capacity, limitations released and all of that. So with that said, that is the program, kind of in a nutshell. I'm doing it kind of quick, but our intent is to give the businesses a tool to where if we do go back into red, they can stay open. Or if it's somebody like the bowling alley that wants extra capacity, they could participate and double the capacity so they can have more people in the bowling alley. We're not trying to force anything on anybody. This isn't a mandate. This isn't a legal issue. This is a program. If you want to participate, great. If you don't, that's fine too. We respect that. You're perfectly fine to walk away from it. And talking with Steve and in looking at all the community members that may participate, our estimate is we may have 5 or 10 people, businesses that'll participate. The restaurants, the theater, the bowling alley, those are the main ones that may want to participate. Aside from that, the orange level really didn't affect most of the businesses, and they really wouldn't need to participate because they have their ability to keep their doors open. So this is mainly meant to allow those businesses the ability to stay open that were affected when we were in the red zone. We did this, we created this program, and part of this application before we send it in for approval is that we have to have letters of support from the law enforcement agencies in the county mayors, the hospital, and the health department and the county commissioners. So far, we have gotten Grenadas, Wiley's, we have the Lamar Police Department, the Prowers County Sheriff's Department, you have the Prowers County Commissioner's letter. And as of about 30 minutes ago, I received the letter and the note from Karen Bryant at PMC, who sent me her letter of support as well. So the only ones we're missing is Hawley and the city of Lamar. And if we get those two, we can send it in and submit it for approval. And like I said, if we get approved, great, we'll offer it to our community. If they take it, that's wonderful. If they don't, that's fine too. My hope is that we don't need to use this. My hope is that we're done with this pandemic and we can move forward. But in the event that we do have another spike, in the event that we do go back to red, I want to have that ability to offer those businesses a way to stay open. So that's all I had. If you want to discuss that, that's what I'm looking at tonight, is asking the council for to support a letter of support for the program, or to give authorization for a letter of support for the program. We'll move on from there. So I'll open it for discussions.
I make a motion to form a letter of support.
I don't like it. I don't think it's, I mean, we've already got a program. We already have a program in place. I don't even know if any of the business could afford to do all the things that it requires, having an extra person at the front door to monitor, having their ventilation systems up to code or wherever those need to be. And then there's no dancing. It's like Footloose all over again.
If you don't mind, I would like Kurt to elaborate a little bit more on the actual requirements that this program is requiring, as weekly testing and weekly inspections, and the friendly QR code that's going to be put out on your window for other community members to complain and report you on social media. I'm not a big fan of this, so I took the liberty myself to go downtown and talk to some business owners about the 5-star program. And I spoke to a business owner who has taken the pledge and mentioned to me that they would just opt out of the program because it's requiring way too much. They don't feel like they need to be inspected weekly and be screened weekly for COVID. And the other business owner was just irate that something like this would be brought forth during a time like this, when we look at our numbers in a realistic way. Prowers County and Lamar combined have 12,000 individuals. And if we look at our numbers for the COVID for the entire year, from March till now, with only about 1,000, a little over 1,000, that's not bad numbers. You know what I mean? It's my opinion that the businesses should have never been shut down in the first place. But I can't support this. I don't like it myself. So that's why I did not want to go on my own feelings. I felt led to visit with some individuals on Main Street who are actually operating and who would be affected by this. I understand it is voluntary, but I think they need to know what this program consists of.
Were those businesses that you talked to, were they closed during the red level?
No, they were not.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is because the ones that approached me for it were the ones that were actually closed. The restaurants, the theater, those are the ones that I had talked to about the 5-star program, because they were closed. We were just trying to find a way to open it. So, and one of the things I want to point out is, and I've had this discussion with quite a few people. If you had asked me back in August, do I really think that we need something like this? I would have said no, because our numbers were declining. Everything was looking good, and it looked like the pandemic was falling off and everything was going back to normal. And then October hit, and all of a sudden we had that one spike, and we had to close businesses from October, November, and December. So looking back, if I had had the opportunity to put this program in place as a precautionary measure, I would have done it in August, just so I could have offered it to the businesses when we did go into red. And that's what my hope is now, is if we do go into red, we'll have it to offer. But if we don't do anything and we go into red, they're going to have to close again. And a lot of these
if somebody would have said to you that there's a 99.94 recovery rate 5 years ago, you probably would have said, this is ridiculous. They're calling it a pandemic and they're just using terminology. And the reality is that there's a high recovery rate to this. They can keep throwing around pandemic, and then keep people under scrutiny and closing businesses. And I honestly, I mean, this is just my own personal feeling, and I think there's people in our community who feel the same way, is the burden should be on the individual, not on the businesses. Just like a pack of cigarettes, it says right on there, dangerous to your health, may cause cancer. Well, guess what? They whether they're going to smoke that cigarette or not.
So
And
Manuel,
thing in town, it's like a 99.94 recovery rate.
Manuel,
Decision whether or not they want to go somewhere, whether or not they want to wear a mask, whether or not they want to stay home.
so Manuel, I can understand. I can see that you're very adamant and very passionate about the fact that you don't agree with the pandemic. And I can see that you're very passionate that you don't agree that the state could shut down businesses. I see that. I can understand that. But did they shut down the businesses in December or in October, November, December? Did they shut down the businesses?
So you mean like the gas station and Walmart?
No. The
These
restaurants,
people are going to constantly get gas and food.
did they shut down the restaurants in October, November, December?
Do we get more traffic in Walmart and the gas stations?
But did they shut down the restaurants?
I'm saying they shouldn't have shut them down. If they're not shutting down the Walmart, they're not shutting down the gas stations. They probably shouldn't have shut down the restaurants either.
Okay, Manuel, my point is, the point that I'm trying to make is that I don't like it either. I don't like the pandemic. I don't like any of this stuff. I don't like it. But as an elected official, I have to play with the deck that I have in front of me. And these are the cards that I have, which is the state's going to come in and tell these restaurants to close. I may not like it. I may not agree with it. I may think it's a hoax. I may think it's BS. But I still have to work with the cards that I have in my hand. And the cards in my hand are saying that they're going to close these businesses if it happens again. And as a community leader, I have to say, am I going to help these businesses? Or am I going to dig my heels in and say, this is a bunch of BS and I don't agree with it. State can just, get out of here. But that's not the case though, because even though I feel that way, I have to look at that restaurant owner that's been struggling for the last 3 months because they haven't had anybody in their store. So I'm not doing this because I believe in the pandemic. I'm not doing it because I think that everybody, this is, the end of the world. I'm doing this because if I could give anything to help those businesses stay open, if we get another spike, I would do it. And that's
Here's my
job.
last question. And my last question about it is this. It's a voluntary program.
Uh-huh.
Now, if they're complying and they get to go down one scale from maybe orange because we're in red, what about businesses who say, hey, you know what? I really don't want to be in that 5-star program, but they keep all of those same procedures in place. They're doing everything they're supposed to. And now remember, it's a voluntary program. Legally, can we close them down if they're doing everything that the other one's doing?
Either they sign up for it so we can register them.
So see, now it's really not voluntary to get that incentive if they're doing the very same things.
But if they're doing the same things, why would they not? Unless they're just digging in their
Because
heels.
maybe they don't want extra government oversight. I mean, that's the biggest killer of small businesses, too much government oversight.
So the biggest thing about the government oversight decision is the freedom of choice. And the freedom of choice is, do you want to stay open or not? Do you want to participate in this program
So
or
then it's
not?
voluntary or it's not voluntary?
Are you voluntarily
if I may.
participating or are you not? And
You know,
if you are, then take it seriously. And if you're not, then don't do it. Yeah,
Well,
that's what it comes
I think
down
it's
to.
important that we elaborate more on what's required of these business owners
Okay.
to be in this voluntary program. I would
Sorry.
like for the city or the citizens to hear what's required of them if they choose to go in this voluntary program. With the
Okay.
weekly testing of being screened for COVID and weekly inspections and the update on their ventilation system if needed. I mean, when I read a contract, and I have to read the small print as well, and I have to find it that it's going to be binding and legal, something's going to be done. I mean, I'm taking the bad with the good here. Everybody's making some valid points. I do want to see businesses open, but I also think that it's important that we also elaborate on what's required to be in this program.
Okay, give me 1 second. I was just getting ready to share that and I got sidetracked answering questions there. So we actually had created this application. Oh, Martha has me disabled for sharing. I was going to share the actual checklist that we have there. And the checklist side of it talks about what's required of these businesses. And when they go to sign up for this, they can look at the checklist and they would have to just verify that they're doing it. For instance, and I'm reading off the checklist directly, they would need to have a business plan of what are you doing to follow the program measures? Do you have signage explaining that there are safety measures being taken in the business? Is there copies of the COVID plan that you're using given to the employees so the employees are aware of it? Yes or no? Mask protocols, are masks required for everybody that enters the facility? Yes or no? Are there signs posted at the entrance reminding people to remain social distance? Yes or no? Are there alternative options for people who don't want to wear masks, like checkout or carry out or delivery or any of those things? Yes or no? Employees, contracted workers, and volunteers, are they required to wear non-medical face mask or coverings? Yes or no? Have all the employees been instructed? Yes or no? Is there a system in place to monitor employee voluntary symptoms such as temperature monitoring and making sure they're not going to work sick, dry cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, all those things? Capacity controls, are there procedures in place for checking, limiting the capacity? Is there a curbside drop off or pickup used? Is the flow of people for traffic modified to where it keeps everybody safe for the entrance to exit? Are they limiting the number of customers according to their social distancing? Spacing, that's the spacing controls. Cleaning controls, there's at least one hand washing facility or a corner with hand sanitizer or something like that. And there's one for the employees so they can wash their hands frequently. Disinfection for the bathrooms. Do they clean the bathrooms regularly, which most businesses do on a daily basis? The use of digital files rather than is encouraged. Let's see, what else is there that would be relevant?
I think we all looked at the packet, Mayor.
Well, Joe was asking me to explain it, so I'm explaining it to everybody so that the community is aware what is required of this as far as what is being asked of these businesses to participate. Now, it does talk about, have you had any citations? It does talk about, I'm trying to find the section for ventilation. And Steve and I had spoke about ventilation to the health department. And as long as they have adequate ventilation as far as a heating cooling system that will move the air and keep the air in motion, whether it be a fan that's turned on or an air filter on the side, that's what they're looking for, is to make sure that there's some movement of the air so it's not stale air. It's not an enclosed building to where there's no ability for them to do that. So that's the extent. We're not asking them to do any investment. And if there is an investment, the investment is on hand sanitizer, masks, gloves, which the city provides for all the participants anyhow. So we already have a stock, an inventory of gloves, masks, and hand sanitizer and wipes. So we would provide those participants free of charge if they so choose to participate. As far as any other investment for that business, there should not be any other than having an employee that stands at the door to greet people and check their temperatures or ask them if they have any symptoms, yes or no, as they come in. Aside from that, there's no investment that I could see. Was there for you, Steve?
No, the only other item that we had discussed along ventilation is maybe replace the furnace filter with a HEPA filter. That'd be about it. Other than that, that's all I know of.
Okay.
The administrative oversight on it?
So the administrative oversight would be, we had talked about having the community development manager, Morgan Becker, do this. With only 5 or 10 people, we're looking at maybe 4 hours a week to do this job as the administrative oversight. Now, that would be the administration manager for the program manager. As far as the oversight committee, the committee that would report to the state or, check in on these people, or not check in on these people, but meet to manage the program, would consist of all the city mayors, Wiley, Hawley, Grenada, Lamar, all the mayors, the county commissioners, the city administrator, the public health department, and anybody else that would like to participate in that administrative committee. But those are
So-
the main
So
requirements.
business owners in town, if they wanted to be a part of that committee, would be welcome on it.
Well, I work at a bank. That's my full-time job. I know Alan Campbell, he's a business owner here in Lamar.
But they're
know,
also the mayor.
So, but he's the mayor in Wiley, yes.
And so it just doesn't seem like the representation is fair because it seems like it's all city officials.
Yeah, and we could add it.
I feel like
to-
at that point, we're just strong arming the businesses into something that they may not want to do. I mean, I've read the packet thoroughly myself and understand it. I just don't agree with it and I don't like it.
Where is the strong arm at?
Well, if we're going back to the administrative committee, we got 3 Prowers County commissioners on it, mayors within all the county, and the public health director, the city administrator, and the mayor itself, you know, you two guys. So, I mean, there's nobody there representing the small business owners there on Main Street or in any other community there. I mean, all this information is going to be comprised and given to you guys. Then you guys are going to hand this over to public health department. Public health department can hand it over to the state level. And then I guess they can just decide on what they're going to do there, whether we shut the business down or whether the state decides to shut the business down because they don't like what's going on or because too many citizens have complained through the QR code that's sitting out there on their window.
So I think you're missing the point that that committee's not going to shut a business down. They're
No,
just
but
going to
I'm
come to
assuming
the
they're gonna
agreement,
consider
excuse
the
me,
information.
they're going to come to the agreement that business does not want to participate in the 5-star program, and they end that relationship. They don't close the business down. They end that agreement.
And I understand the voluntary program, Mayor. I do. I get it. Nobody has to sign up for it if they don't want to. I understand.
Right.
If you don't have the option, the state will shut you down. So that's all there is to it. Black and
Yeah, if we
white.
don't have an option for them to do this and we go to a red, their business shuts down anyway. So we're just giving them an option to participate and make it work. And if they don't want to participate, walk away. Don't need to.
Can we move on to something else now?
We can, if you want to approve this with the
Make a motion to
modification
approve.
of adding a business member or a PEP member or something like that, we could do that if that would make you feel better. But that was just a decision that, you know, that was made offhand to add the mayors and the county commissioners. But I don't see a problem with adding anybody onto that committee, whether it be a member of PEP, a business owner, a citizen, or whoever would like to be on it. I don't think that that's an issue where they're trying to keep anybody out of it. So it'll be an open public meeting anyhow, because the administrative committee would be part of the open meeting laws for Colorado. So it would be open for public anyhow.
I'd like
One
to
more-
ask a question if I may,
Uh-huh.
briefly. I'm just curious, it does say in there that they'll be reporting to CDPHE.
Yes.
So is there any way that you see that affecting business licenses or anything else related to the businesses that maybe don't pass or have 2 complaints in 90 days or somehow are adversely reported on?
What I was told, what I would understood it as is we report that these are the businesses that are on the program that are participating, and these are the businesses that have left the program. Whether they left voluntarily, whether they left because they weren't following through, whether they left because they had complaints. As far as the state coming in, if they are a restaurant and they're not following the restaurant guidelines for the state will do whatever they need to do because that's not relevant to this program. So the only thing that we're reporting is these are the participants and these are not the participants, and this is why they're not participating anymore. The state has actually had their liquor inspector going around town checking in businesses already, so we don't need to worry about that, you know, whether or not they're following the guidelines according to that. State already has their own people that do that. This is not even relevant to that.
You're saying, one other thing, sorry. You're saying that this would impact or really be important if businesses shut down again. So is there a reason to deal with it today versus waiting if that event ever happens again?
Yes. The reason why we're wanting to do it now is because as of yesterday, our numbers were so close to being in the range that once a week, Megan sends out this 5-star report card. And in the 5-star report card, we have to meet certain criteria to be considered for this 5-star variance application. We are right there within a few numbers of actually meeting those requirements. Now, could they get better? Yes. 2 weeks from now, they may be nothing. It may not even be a problem whatsoever. But in the chance that a week from now we have a spike and those numbers come up, we won't qualify and we won't be able to apply at that time. So the reason why we were trying to do it now is because we are at a level where we do qualify for it. And as I said, this is a preventative measure. This isn't something that I foresee being needed right away as much as it is if in case we do have to go to red, we have it available for those businesses. So that's what our goal was to try to get it now that our numbers are where we can apply.
Lance, if it'll help you, there's one determining factor. Our incident rate has to be at 350 per 100,000 in order to even apply for the program, just so you know. It's all based on the incident rate.
Do you remember what we're at now?
353.
Yeah, so we're right there on that cusp.
If the city doesn't approve it and the rest of the county does, is that okay, the county and not the city?
They could submit it without the city, but really the city is 60% of the county. So if the city doesn't do it, there's really no reason for them to apply for it. You know, if it was Wiley or, you know, Wiley may have one applicant to this, but if they were to stay out of it, we could probably still apply because the majority is with the city. But if the city doesn't do it, we'll pretty much drop this program. So
okay,
we'll kill the program.
I also wanted to bring up that I had a business owner call me this morning and talk to me about it. And he wanted to make sure if a business is not participating in the 5-star program, they're not required to uphold those standards. The public doesn't really, I guess it's free land. If they want to complain because somebody doesn't adhere to those requirements in their own business, then they can, but it's not part of this whole process. Private businesses that do not choose to participate in 5-star program are not held to the same standards as those businesses who are choosing to be in the program, because they're saying they're trying to be a safer environment.
Right.
So I just wanted to make that point, that residents just can't start complaining about every business downtown.
Right. So, you know, as I mentioned before, I was, the two that I thought, you know, was really concerned about was Prowers Medical Center, and they did send their letter of support, and the Prowers County Sheriff's Department, they did send their letter of support. And then we do have Lamar Police Department, we have the Wiley, Grenada, and then the county commissioners have given theirs. So just to give you an idea of where we're at.
I make a motion to City of Lamar support.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to give the letter of support. Are there any questions?
No.
I just wanted to make a comment really quick since everybody else was making theirs. I'm not 100% for this program. I'm not 100% what the state is doing during this so-called pandemic. But this program does help businesses, not only here in Lamar, but in Wiley, Holly, Grenada. I mean, I don't see why we shouldn't be able to help everybody else.
No, looks like you froze up there, Raf. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any final questions?
I stopped my video. I'm having internet issues at home.
Okay, we can
I don't
hear
know if
you.
you,
We can hear you now.
okay, I killed my video. I'm not sure if I was having internet issues at home, which I think I am. I don't know if you caught what I said. I just wanted to say that I'm not 100% for what the state has been doing during this whole called pandemic. But if this program does help our local businesses that want to join it, including the ones in Lamar, Wiley, Holly, then, you know, I will support it, but I'm just kind of skeptical of what the state has been doing this whole past year.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I said, this is more of dealing with the cards that I have in front of me and how do we help the businesses with the cards that we have in front of us. You know, it's whether I like it or not, whether I agree with it or not, whether I think the pandemic is real or not, or my issue is how do I keep these businesses open and help them try to do that? So that's what I was trying to do with this. So we do have a motion and a second. Last time, any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
So we have, of the 7, there would be 5 yes and 2 no's. Motion passes on a split decision. Okay, moving on, we do have, sorry, I had my pages mixed up. The next item, Steve.
Well, the next item would, I guess we would go right to, since we replaced item 2 with item 6, item 2 is now item 6. So the next one would be item 3, Kirk.
Yeah, that would be the library.
Yes, the library board appointment.
Okay, so would you like to speak on that?
Mayor Crespin,
Yes.
what about the appointment to the Public Safety Board?
Oh,
That's
thank you.
actually item 2.
That
Yeah.
is item 2.
Well, we switched them, so that now becomes item 6.
All right, my apologies. I had closed my agenda on accident. So, of course, last year we had spoke and agreed to create a public safety board. And that public safety board would be oversight and advisory for the police department, fire department, ambulance, basically the public safety services. That was something that was agreed on and voted on. Now it comes the time to start working on this project. And rather than trying to discuss it offhand, I thought I would bring it to the council, see if we can select 2 members that would like to work with Kyle and Jeremy and Steve to work on this program to try to hammer out the details and bring it back to the council. So do we have anybody that's interested in participating here? Joe?
I
Manuel?
wouldn't mind.
Jerry?
I'll go ahead.
All of the council members will have input, of course. We're just wanting some, people to meet with Steve to get it started and get the ball rolling, and meet with Kyle and Jeremy to see what they want in there. This is meant to be a positive board that will help, back the police department, the fire department, the ambulance department, saying, yes, we've verified that they are doing what they're supposed to. And they have been, just basically a outside third party that can come in and validate. And that's what we want to do, because just like I mentioned earlier with talking about communications with our community, this is one of those opportunities where we can increase communications with our community. And if there's somebody that's doesn't feel like something's happening properly in the public safety department, they can look at the board, or they can go to attend one of these meetings and discuss it, and we can get it resolved right away. So we do have Joe and Jerry. Are we all good with that?
Oh, wait,
Yes.
I changed my mind.
Okay,
I think Ralph would be better than me because Ralph has more experience and he's around it more. And I think he would do good. Ralph, do you mind?
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
I will help out if you need me to, but I think you and Joe would be good at it.
I do agree with the background, Ralph. You'd probably be really good for, helping give some advice and guidance. So
Yeah,
are we all good with
that's
that,
fine.
council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Go for it.
so you can meet on that and then bring it back as needed. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Now this one would be the Planning and Zoning Commission. Sorry, this is the next one. Item number 1, Planning and Zoning Commission. This is what you're talking about, right, Linda?
Actually, we're just going in order now, Kirk. So the next one you have to deal with the library board now.
The library board, okay.
We have
Okay,
a recommendation from our library director, Sue, that Janet Erdman be appointed to the library advisory board. Obviously, I'm sure everybody kind of knows Janet. She's a resident, a retired K-12 teacher. And so that was the recommendation from the board that is sent to the city council.
okay, do we have a motion?
I make the motion that we accept her.
A second.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any final questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Was that an opposition or a for? Oscar?
4.
Okay, so the motion passes unanimous. Okay, next item on the agenda. Steve, is the third amendment to the mutual release and settlement agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Would you like to speak on that?
I certainly can. Yes, I think everybody's fairly familiar right now what ARPA is doing with the demolition of the north side of Maple Street, or I'm sorry, the south side. This third release and settlement agreement, the third amendment and settlement agreement deals with the north side of Maple. So when you commonly hear everybody say the north side, that means all the equipment, everything on the north side of Maple. In consideration of not demolishing the north side and us pursuing a economic development opportunity with North Fork Farms, ARPA is going to be submitting to the city the sum of $511,000 to be used towards the repurposing of that north side property site. Now, what we don't have quite worked out yet is we don't have quite worked out the lease agreement with North Fork. So that being said, if the council were to take action and approve the third amendment here with ARPA, which I would recommend that we do, I would say that we should approve that third amendment contingent upon review and approval of the lease agreement and option to purchase with North Fork. And I think I sent all of you the actual lease agreement and option to purchase that contain my review comments. We have since met with the attorney for North Fork and the owner of North Fork, myself, Lance and Kirk had a conference call. Lance is intimately involved with this. And as a matter of fact, just drafted some language for the agreement that basically would limit the exposure and the liability of the community. We discussed that. North Fork and their attorney has some work to do related to various components. And again, they're basically to address the comments that you all have been submitted to everybody based upon my review. But again, We're at a point right now where I believe we can approve the Third Amendment and the settlement agreement contingent upon the approval of the lease agreement and option to purchase with North Fork.
What do you think, Lance?
Okay, so obviously last time it came before and I had some issues with kind of how they address things in there, specifically the conveyed assets aspect with not real clarity in it initially on whether it was just Northside equipment or it didn't include the conveyed assets. The new version, which you have now, makes it clear that it's going to be both Northside equipment and the conveyed assets that they're no longer going to be liable for. They're going to be completely released from the claims for anything dealing with that property, which is the north side of Maple Street there, and all property and the structures, the buildings included on those. In exchange, obviously, it's, as Steve said, that 511 amount, which is included on there. I would just point out that, whatever that risk is that we're taking on, the amount is that 511. And it does come with the contingency that it has to be spent on either repurposing the property or demolition of the property. I think there's not a time limit in that agreement or anything like that, but we know that the longer it sits there, depending on whether there's agreement with North Fork or not, the longer it sits there, the more, I think, more expensive it'll get to remove at some point if that's where it ends up. Now, as Steve pointed out, there was a meeting with North Fork, and we continue to negotiate out those terms. You see kind of the initial draft of that agreement. I think we had a very productive meeting last Friday. I felt like we addressed a lot of the concerns that the city has. And so I'm hopeful that I sent them additional language changes that I had over the weekend and sent that to them. I'm hopeful that when we get back the second agreement or the updated agreement, that it'll sort of meet our needs as far as I'm concerned. I think the ARPA agreement itself is a better version than the first version, just because it does make clear that they're going to be released from both pieces of all equipment on that side and from everything contained in that, which it lists in that document or as an attachment, the items that they will be released for and that the city will be responsible for. Again, that's obviously the idea is to have North Fork be a part of this sort of repurposing going forward. So I think if we can get that done, then we'll be able to move forward with, if you guys are willing to do it on the contingent agreement, passing the ARPA agreement on that North Fork agreement being approved and accepted, and then I think we'll be able to move forward on those.
So, Manuel, just to kind of summarize, ARPA was, during our lawsuit with ARPA, we were awarded the domes. And in that lawsuit settlement, we were told that either if we didn't use the domes by 2020, November of 2020, ARPA would have to demolish them at their expense. So in November of 2020, right before November of 2020, I was approached by Tim Hume with North Fork Farms, who had some interest in converting those domes into fertilizer and grain silos. The opportunity is there. It creates new jobs, and it was a nice deal to have it utilized rather than just sitting there as an eyesore. So we had those discussions. In discussing it with ARPA, they had already gotten a bid to see how much it would cost to demolish all of that property. We went back in turn and said, rather than you spending the money on the property to demolish it, why don't you give us that to help North Fork Farms convert it to an operating facility? It creates jobs, it helps them, it helps us, it helps everybody, and we have a better deal out of this. ARPA agreed, but as Lance said, it's very specific, saying that the funds can only be used for repurposing, renovating, or demolishing, and that's it. So anything that's not used in that goes back to ARPA. So our agreement, when I say it's contingent to the agreement with North Fork Farms, if North Fork Farms doesn't do it, then we'll just have ARPA demolish it because we don't need the domes.
Is there a time constraint on repurposing? So, I mean, if we don't initially up front use up all the funds, but what if later within the next 1 or 2 years, we see that there's some other things that those funds could be used for to help repurpose? I mean, is there a time constraint on usage for those funds?
So we would be from north side of Maple Street north, that whole area, which is the domes. There's some tanks, there's some conveyor belts, all of that North Fork Farms wanted. So they're gonna, if we agree on this, we will take that away from ARPA and we'll assume all the risks for the time frame as we switch it over to North Fork Farms. We'll have some risk in the intermediary between the contracts. So that's why we're trying to synchronize these contract signings at the same time so that we don't have any risk there. But the contract that we're doing with North Fork is a 5-year lease. So in 5 years, they either use the funds or they buy it from us. But either way, we're done in 5 years. So if they don't use the funds within the 5 years, we have to give it back to ARPA, is basically what I'm saying, is the 5-year agreement.
Well, to answer your question directly, there is no time limit. And Lance, please correct me if I'm wrong. So let's say that we don't reach a lease agreement with ARPA and we take the money. And could the city council choose to wait 2 years for another prospect to come by and repurpose that property? I believe we could.
That's true.
So your question directly, Manuel, no, there is no time.
Okay.
And Lance, please correct me if I'm wrong.
There's nothing in the third amendment that says that we have a time limit to use these funds. We just have to provide or keep evidence and of any expenditures to repurpose or demolish and provide that evidence to ARPA upon their request. So
If we do my point was if we did it with North Fork Farms, then once they purchase it, the deal's done. If they, after the 5 years. But you're right, if we decide to use it for something else, we could do that.
Now, if North Fork agreement doesn't go through, the city council could say, hey, use that 11,000 and clear the property and demolish it. You have that option as well, Manuel, just so you know.
Okay. Any other questions?
I move we approve the third amendment and authorize the mayor to sign upon approval of the lease incentive agreement with North Fork Farms.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next item, it looks like would be the agreement for providing an ambulance emergency services in Prowers County from the city of Lamar. Steve, would you like to talk on that?
Yes, I have been speaking with the commissioners and they have agreed that they will pay the same amount of money for ambulance services as they have previously paid the city in prior agreements, which is $120,000. Apparently, this has been a point of contention over the years, but as everybody will agree, last year, we simply didn't have time to try to hammer out any kind of issues that may exist. Rather, we were working on the 911 consolidation and the dispatch center. So the county commissioners agreed, okay, fine, let's just go 2021 at the same amount of money. And that's what this is. It's the identical contract that we currently have with the commissioners, only for 2021.
Okay.
I move we approve the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Any final questions? All those in favor signify by
I,
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
And I'm assuming that authorizes the mayor to sign as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we had moved the agenda item number 6 up to the top, so we are completed with that. Next item on the agenda.
Is Washington Street lift station.
Yep.
When the council awarded this project to PEI, we did not have the ground engineering portion in there, which is, as you all know, the geotechnical part of it. That contract is $5,910. So I would simply ask for a motion to approve the contract with ground engineering in the amount of $5,910 related to geotechnical services for Washington Street Stormwater Lift Station project.
No, I've read and reviewed it. I don't have any issues with it.
And the funds are available, Kristen?
Yes, they are. It's part of our grant. Thank you.
So it's not coming out of general funds, but you said part of a grant?
It's in the water fund, Joe. And it was part of the entire project. It's a grant we got from DOLA, the 530,000. We're matching it with in-kind, and this contract will be part of the match.
Okay. Any other questions? Can we entertain a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve
And authorized signature.
and authorize signature. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous. The last item on the agenda is an executive session. This executive session is for the discussion of a personnel matter under CRS section 24-6. I guess before we do that, maybe we should put in the
No.
Miscellaneous. If we could do miscellaneous first.
miscellaneous, because we will not have a decision coming out of executive session. So let's move to miscellaneous.
All
Are
right.
there any miscellaneous items?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I make a motion to we repeal resolution 171203. That's the, we made it in December 27th of 17. That's giving $350,000 a year to Light and Power. They've raised the rates, so that's negated that, and it amounts to about 60 cents a month on off your light bill. So it's an insignificant amount of money off your light bill. And the funds could be used for self-service at the airport, parks, streets. It's not a lot of money, but it's money. And I just make a motion to repeal that. It's just a resolution. And that's what I got to say about it, because the airport needs self-service. All the other ports, according to the pilots, Lamar's the only major that doesn't have self-service. I'm not counting Springfield or those type of airports. But anyway, even Lahaina's got self-service. So, I mean, if Lahaina can get it, I don't know why we shouldn't have it. And it's a major drawback, especially on weekends, because they have to call somebody up for fuel at the airport on weekends. And it's about, what, $80,000 for self-service? Anyway,
That's the budget, Oscar. Yes, 80,000.
right. So anyway, that's my motion, is to repeal that resolution.
Does anybody have any questions on that resolution? And we all know what that's for.
Was there an agreement with ARPA to use these funds or in a settlement agreement or anything like that? I don't know. I know very little about this part of it.
No, there's not.
This happening in 2017, so I wasn't a part then.
Right, so the ARPA agreement allowed, required ARPA to pay the $350,000 roughly per year to the city of Lamar as back pay for the settlement. We, at the time, the council chose to put those funds to Lamar Light and Power so that they can offset the payments for bills for citizens across the board, and in a hope that it would lower electricity rates. The amount was very, very, very insignificant. So like Oscar said, the difference of 50, 60 cents per light bill compared to being able to utilize these funds to expand our airport or to expand streets or to expand some other department is what he is proposing. Originally, that's what those funds were, the resolution was for, was just to direct those funds somewhere. But my understanding is they could be used anywhere. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes, that's correct. There wasn't any stipulation on what that money was for. It was just part of their settlement dollars that we were owed.
My only caveat would be that my only thought was that I'm not sure if Lamar Light and Power budgeted for that item, that money to be coming into this from the city every year, or if that was just an item that they put in as a ancillary item that they weren't always expecting. So I think we should, if the council decides to repeal that resolution, we should have a discussion with Lamar Light and Power just to make sure that we don't put them in harm's way, I guess. That's what I was
Yeah, and it should probably be put on maybe next meeting's agenda with more specific language on how it's gonna, what it's gonna fund and how, where more specifically where it's gonna go.
Yes, I would like to table it so that way we can discuss it more, possibly even in the work session together and go from there.
next week.
And I do want to add that it was the intention of the council at that point that those funds be used to give the citizens some form of relief. We talked about other scenarios to that, but to provide some form of relief from our tax rates. So, or from our utility rates. So I think it merits more discussion.
And I have a meeting with Lamar Light and Power tomorrow, their board meeting, and I can bring it up. I'm the liaison for Lamar Light and Power. So I could bring it up to the board and discuss it with them and then bring the information back to the council on Monday when we have our work session. We could discuss it more in depth then.
Fine.
Are we in agreement?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other items for miscellaneous?
One more thing, if you don't mind, please. 14th Street has become like a drag strip. And I don't know if there's something that can be done. I've had several scenarios and thoughts run through my mind here on 14th Street with the high speed that takes place on 14th Street as speed bumps, or what could it take to get grant money to put up some type of traffic trap right there, like you have in the cities. If you're going too fast in certain areas, rural areas, or not rural areas, but communities, there's a camera there that will take your photo of your license and then send you a ticket in the mail. It could be various times of night where we get these speeders, and it seems to be happening quite frequently here lately.
I think we've had that discussion on a couple of different streets going to the high school. The 14th, I know we've had some issues on 9th Street because that's a wide open straight path.
Yeah.
And I know 6th Street has had some issues. At the time, we had Kyle review the streets because he manages the traffic, does the traffic control for managing it. Do you have any suggestions, Kyle, or ideas that we should do?
Yeah, Joe, you said it in the evening or the nighttime? Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes it can happen at 1 o'clock in the morning. It'll wake me up. That's how loud it is when they're going down the street. And it's definitely a high rate of speed.
Okay, so it's always after dark, after 8, 9 o'clock at night? Is that accurate?
It just depends, Kyle. I mean, I can't give you a specific time, but it just happens quite frequently here lately.
Okay.
But usually, yes, in the evening hours.
We can also get our radar trailers set up there to kind of remind people what the speed limit is, but I'll also ask for increased patrols on 14th Street.
Do you think that will help, Joe, or do you want to?
Well, I hope it helps, but you know, the thought came for long term. You know, long term is, you know, when I travel to the city and I go too fast in certain areas, you know, there's a pole there with a camera on it that will take a photo of your vehicle and sends you a ticket in the mail if you're going too fast.
We can investigate that and see what it would take. I'm not sure what it would involve. I mean, we can get a price on it and find out.
That would take some doing.
Yeah.
I'm not aware. Do you know what towns have those, Joe? I know of the red light cameras, but I'm not aware of the speed cameras.
Well, I know in Colorado Springs, if you're going down, I believe it's a Circle Drive, there's a speed camera right there that will take photos of your license plate if you're going too fast.
And do they send you a ticket or just a letter of warning or?
That I don't know. I haven't had one sent to me.
Okay.
But I've never,
But
yeah, I'm like Kyle, Joe. I know of the red light cameras, which are a very contentious item, but I've never seen the speed cameras. I'd be interested to check those out. Yeah.
Okay.
Where I grew up, they had them. Paradise Valley, Arizona had them, and they've had them for more than I care to admit. And they were definitely speed cameras.
So did you get a ticket, Anne-Marie?
No, no, I
Oh,
didn't.
Of course you did.
But I knew people.
Oh, okay. I'm just checking.
And I'm with Joe. I think we really do need to look into it because I had a mom complain to me about it. She said she went as far as yelling at the cars as they were going by. And she's just worried about a kid getting hit on their bike. But she said 14 is like a drag strip there. They go fast.
Well, 6th Street after dark or after 10, 11 o'clock at night is just as bad and noisy.
Okay.
Well, I think we have a good start. Kyle, put the speed trailer out and then ask for increased patrols while we kind of investigate this. I'm just not familiar with some of these items.
I'm not entirely sure that speed cameras are legal in Colorado. That'd be something that I have to check into also. We have that one that we have down Main Street that flashes the light at you, but it doesn't take pictures or anything. So I'll do some checking into it, see what I can find.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other items for miscellaneous? Do we have any questions on Facebook that needed to be answered or? A lot of comments.
Russ had asked something in regards to the payments. He said, weren't those payments to run for 26 years?
Yes.
He is
Yes, that
accurate.
is correct.
Yeah.
That's from ARPA though, to us.
Yeah,
That's
that's not payment to the Lamar Utility Board. That's just to ARPA. Okay. Any other items? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move forward with the executive session. This is to discuss personnel matter under CRS section 24-6-402 parentheses F or 4 parentheses F, and is not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion in the matter in open session. Any member of the body or elected official, the appointment of any person to fill the office, body, or an elected official. Personnel policies that require any discussion, it's none of those, but it is to discuss the position description and conduct performance evaluation for the city clerk. So basically, we're going in for an executive session to do the annual review for the city clerk. And the next meeting, we'll do the annual review for the city treasurer. And as I had mentioned earlier today, the city council, these are two of the employees that the city council directly oversees. So we do have this once a year to do the annual review for these staff members. Do we have any final questions before moving into executive session?
Yes, Kurt, thanks for allowing me to join your meeting, your Zoom meeting. Very interesting. I enjoyed the discussion and I realize what you're going into of an executive session. So I'm going to check out now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Calvin. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Melcher.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions before we move into the session? There will be no decisions made out of the executive session. So all other members can leave and we will not be doing any other decisions after that.
So Kirk, does that mean you're going to adjourn the council meeting then, correct?
Well, we can't adjourn until after the executive session, but what we'll do is we'll leave the executive session. We will all log into the other link that we received. I think everybody has received that. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with that link, you'll log in for the executive session and we'll close out the meeting after that. Okay? Are we all good?
Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
We have a
So
motion?
I'll second it.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
we have a
who made the-
motion and a second to go into executive session. All those, who were they again?
Yes, please.
Who was the motion?
I did,
And a
Jerry.
second?
Give it to Ralphie.
Ralph. Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for participating and attending our council meeting.